Well, hello and welcome to another week of Retropower Uncut. And we're here in the engine room with the Toyota 2JZ engine that's destined for Project Utah. Adam's been doing a bit of work on this this week. Main thing you'll notice, it has a cylinder head now. He's fitted the head. He's built the head up. These are, for those unfamiliar with them, they're a solid follower engine. They're not hydraulic followers. They use shims to set the valve clearances. So one of the latter jobs in building up the cylinder head is to check what the valve clearances will be in order to get the correct shims or make the correct shims. He's dummy built the head, checked all the valve clearances and ordered all the shims. They're coming from Toyota. We've now got to wait for the shims, but once all the clearances are actually checked and all the gaps are measured and they're all written down, then there's no reason that the head can't be fitted at that stage. We know we've got valve to piston clearance, that's actually all standard, so there's nothing very technical there. So the head's now on, that's fitted to the engine, torqued down. As soon as we get the shims, we can fit the cams. The cams are currently over there. As soon as we get the shims, we can fit the shims, fit the cams, and that's basically the head all built up. We've just trial fitted the cam covers so that we could start to look into the spark plug lead situation on the engine. We wanted some sort of at least moderately period looking plug leads for the engine so that it kind of looks in keeping with the rest of the car rather than going for the really modern looking ones. And we're running the engine on a separate coil pack, Bosch unit, with a bolt falling out of it. We're running the engine on a triple twin coil pack. And we're going to have the leads running up. The coil mounts below the carburetors, out of the way where it's out of sight, and then the leads are going to come up through the inlet manifold over the top and to the spark plugs. And we wanted that to look just in keeping with the rest of the car. And I think I'd have to double check with Adam, but I'm pretty sure the conclusion was we're going to use a similar sort of setup to the Ford BDA grommets, so that the leads come up and go through a grommet in a blanking plate, which he's currently drawing up, or has just drawn up, that goes down the centre of the valley, and then the leads will click on to the plugs under that, but they'll have grommets in that plate. So it all just looks right for the engine, and I think we're going to try and use some of the old style cloth insulated, or at least want leads that look like the old style cloth insulated plug leads, again just to keep up the appearance. The inlet manifold's still the plastic 3D printed one, which has been repaired a couple of times now, having been knocked around the workshop a fair bit during various bits of mock-up. Some of the plastic hadn't stuck very well, so it's been glued a few times. But that's still on there at the moment while we wait for Alitech, who are machining the final version of the inlet manifold from aluminium billet, which is being done now-ish, I believe. It certainly it was on the job list for them imminently a little while ago, so I don't think that'll be too long now before we see that. Once we get that, there are various other bits that have also got to go for anodising. I think these cam covers will be going for anodising, possibly the Valley infill that goes around the spark plugs, depending on whether we do that in aluminium or stainless. Again, I'm not sure on that yet, whether that's going to be stainless or aluminium, but if it's aluminium, that should be going for anodising as well. So yeah, decent progress on that. It's starting to look like an engine now. So yeah, a few more bits on that, and then I think we've got to have a look at what we're doing transmission-wise, what we're doing in terms of finishing that, and the final iterations on the clutch arrangement before that can all go together and is ready to go in. The suspension, I think we touched on that last time round on all the front end. That's pretty much as it was last week. The brake conversion sorted, all the parts for the front end are done. The axle is to be built. That's again one of the imminent tasks. We'll probably go over that next week, but the final assembly on the rear axle can now take place. We've been held up by waiting for a particular bearing. With the crown wheel and pinion we're using and the type of diff fitted to it, there is an odd size bearing involved. It's not as usual with these things, it's not as simple as it ought to be. there was an odd size bearing that we had a very long wait to get hold of, and it's extremely expensive because it's an obsolete size. It's still available from old stock in various places, but it's not a common item. And we had quite a long wait to get hold of that, but we've got it now, so that can go ahead and be assembled now. So that'll be in an upcoming episode. So I think that covers things in here. We'll have a little wander through into the workshop and have a look at the W111 Kaiser II project, because there's been some major steps forward on that as well this week. James has been busy again. I think last time we touched on the exhaust. James had finished off doing the exhaust on it. That's all done now. All the brackets are done. It's all fitted to the car. Really happy with that. It's a superb job. That's all done. This week he's largely been putting things up in the engine bay, for want of a better term, just finishing off all the little odds and ends, tidying up plumbing, finishing off bits that weren't fully done, finalising mounts on things, checking bits of installation, and then filling the fluids, checking that nothing leaked immediately, the fluid wasn't falling out anywhere, which it wasn't, and then following all those checks and a little bit of PDU programming from Cal, to get various parts of the electrical system fired up. The car's been fired up and is now up and running. No leaks, no problems there, all good. The exhaust sounds superb. We've given a little trial rev, make sure that sounds nice. It sits there burbling away at idle nicely. It's not too loud. Yeah, we're really happy with all that. That's all spot on. And then in terms of talking about noise on the W111, James has also been working on finalising the stereo installation. That's pretty much all done as well now. There's a couple of final little bits that need to tie into bits of finished trim. But once they're done, the stereo installation is basically complete. Yeah, it's looking really good. Very. The finishing line's in sight on it now, which is a nice place to be, because it's a car that we really all have a soft spot for. It's a really impressive car now. It's really coming together very well. So yeah, there'll be another update next week, which will cover the next bits of progress on it. But it's certainly a vehicle we're all extremely proud of now. So moving on from that. If we swing by, on the way, we swing by the laptop there. James has just got, touching on last week, you would have seen the 3D scanning taking place that A2P2 were doing on the rear of the Utah Jag. Well, the result of that is already here now. The scan was done. And then A2P2 have also done the primary CAD work to formulate the bezel arrangement, which you can see on screen, which is designed to fit exactly into the apertures on the back of the Jaguar, and fit exactly round the edge of the tail light recesses and flush with the bodywork. And that was the point of doing the scan, was to ensure that this lip around here, around the back of the bezel, sits exactly flush to the bodywork on the car, which, being handmade, is not going to be completely, it will be close, but it's not completely symmetrical one side of the car to the other. And it isn't an easy shape to just measure manually, using a ruler or a vernier or anything. It needs something more accurate than that to get the measurement. Hence the laser scanning. So that now this is done, it's possible to see why that scanning was done, and that's the result at the moment. Now I think James has literally just set the 3D printer going to print those. So next week you'll be able to see the result of that. They're being printed in PLA. And then we'll then check them on the body. Well, we'll check that one on the body. If that one's good, he's going to do the same job on the scan data for the opposite side to generate the same for the opposite side of the car. And then he'll send us a model for that one. We'll check that one. We'll 3D print that. If that's good, then we'll get them machined in from solid brass, ready for chroming. So yeah, that's a nice little step forward as well. A nice little move on from last week. We're going to move through into the noise zone now. It's easy enough to hear what Stu's working on. It sounds very much like door gaps. So, progress in here is on various fronts. The first of which we'll talk about is the Chevette. The goings on here have been some dry build work and various bits of metal work. In terms of dry build, the engine and gearbox, or a mock-up engine block with dry sump pan attached and an empty cylinder head attached. That's been bolted onto the bell housing and onto the Quaife 60G gearbox. They've been offered in this morning, and the cross member's been put in this morning. That was steam cleaned off this morning. That's also gone in, just standard as it came out of the car when it came here really at the moment, other than being cleaned. That's been offered in so that we can work out the engine and transmission mounts for the particular positioning that the engine's having in this car. We've done these in the past, but for various reasons, the mounts are not always the same depending on application. So we're going to make these mounts to suit this application. We bought some Group 4 Escort 4 link boxes for the car. Having checked those over and gone, basically the rear suspension on the car is loosely Escort based. It's not possible to use the exact Escort link boxes. I offered them in. They're a little bit short in a couple of places for the ride height that we want to run on the car. With the links run at the angles we want to run them at, the link boxes are actually slightly short to reach the floor that they've got to fit to. And it wasn't really worth modifying them, so I've just drawn up some more and then profiled out, cut and fabricated some more link boxes to accurately fit the floor. So they're now in, all welded in. I've made the rear turrets. We're fitting for the rear turrets. We're fitting those into the original cutouts in the floor of the car. The Chevette hatches had a floor based on the Chevette saloon, which was fitted with turrets from the factory. On the hatch, they fitted blanking plates into where the turrets were fitted on the saloon, just to block the holes. So on these, we've taken those blanking plates out, and I then fabricate turrets. Rather than doing the full long travel turrets that they would have used on the gravel spec cars, I'm using a slightly smaller turret, as this is only going to be a tarmac use car, which I'm going to fit to the original inner arch apertures. So I fabricated those turrets, or shaped those turrets. Scott's removed the original blanks and they're ready to then fit into those blanks. Scott's finished repairing the A-pillar, finished the front footwell area and the bottom of the bulkhead, the repairs needed there. We're still waiting for a sill, hence the big gap down the side of the car. That's holding things up a little bit now because we're awaiting the sill. We are going to continue getting the engine and gearbox mounts done, and then the next step really inside is to start and work on the roll cage. Because the main hoop feet are going to tie into the chassis rail sections and the link boxes and the fabricated section that goes across between the main hoop uprights. So all that's got to tie together in there. So one of the next steps will be fitting the roll cage. So moving on from Chevette, Stu's been working on the Camaro this week again. He's been getting through lots more dry build work and gapping, panel gapping. There was a lot of work still to do on the car, panel gaps wise. The panels were not a great fit on the car as it came to us. The replacement panels didn't make that fit any better, and in some places made it worse. So Stu's just been going through. It's just a very methodical and quite time-consuming task of making sure all the gaps are good before we start any body prep on the car. He's now getting pretty well through that. He's just been fitting this door to wing and door to quarter gap, and also making sure that all the stainless trims that go around the window apertures also then fit the panels without gaps and without waves in them when they're fitted. Just making sure that everything lines up. So Stu's been doing that. He's been finalising some details inside the car. The LS engine uses a fly-by-wire throttle setup, So he's been mounting the the electric throttle pedal basically. He's been mounting that in the car. The tunnel was never cut for the gear lever when we did the initial round of fabrication some time ago on the car. So he's cut in the gear lever hole and made the gator surround retainer for the transmission tunnel there. But the major work is going through all of the panel alignment, panel gapping, and then sort of the next phase is, once all that's done, is working out how we're going to retain the panels in those positions so that we can, when we actually repanel the car up, probably several times during body prep, we can actually replicate the alignment as we've got it now, because it's quite a challenge. These cars, when they were built, weren't really designed for good panel alignment. In fact, they weren't even remotely designed for good panel alignment. They were pretty much thrown together. And the front end in particular is kind of it's sort of held on by a wing and a prayer on one of these. It's held on by 4 huge rubber bushes, which enables the whole front of the car to flex. Now we've changed the mounting of the front end and made it a lot stiffer, and we've added quite a lot of structure to the front of the car. The problem is that the way the panel alignments were set originally on the car was using a lot of shims to compensate for the fact that the front could be fitted in a number of ways. And trying to align all of that repeatably to a good standard is almost impossible, because you could fit the panels on the car once and they'll be fine. You could take them all off, put them back on again, attempt to get them in the same places. You'll never do it, and they'll all be in a completely different alignment. So what one of the things we've got to do there is basically make the car possible to assemble with the panels in the same places each time, and it's actually quite a challenge. Given the blank canvas that we're working from, it's actually quite a challenge to get those panels to line up each time. But that's one of the remaining areas that we've got to finish addressing on it. Another area we've been working on is various parts to do with the CV8. The CV8's up on the ramp there. The body is now detached. It's rested back on, but it is now detached. Rich finished that last week and got the body all released last week. He's since then been working on, amongst other things, been stripping the panels down for the car. The doors, he's stripped all the door furniture out of the doors so that we can rebuild the doors, because the door bottoms are very rotten. The door skins are aluminium, the inner frames are steel on the CV8, and there's been a lot of bimetallic corrosion at the bottom of the door. And we need to remove the skins to repair it. We need to pattern the doors before we remove the skins so we can make the new skins, and then we need to repair the bottom parts of the doors. So he's stripped all the doors down to enable that. He's now stripping the front clam down, getting all the framework out of the front clam, because all the framework that's fitted to all the various panels is all going to need, at best, if it doesn't need replacement, it's certainly going to need blasting, zinc metal spraying or galvanising. We haven't quite gone through all that yet. It's going to need corrosion protecting and refinishing. So he's taking all that apart so that we can do that. I'm guessing we might actually powder coat quite a bit of that, but he's going through that at the moment. So that pretty much finishes up where we are with the CV8. In the booth just over there is hiding the Utah Jaguar. That's really the only thing that's on that this week, is that Gaz has been fitting the Dynamat sound deadening to the inside of that. That's all done now. Yeah, realistically, that's about where we are this week. I think that's covered everything. Adam's actually in the machine room at the moment. He's just finishing off the final mountings for the rear arch spats on Utah. They were temporarily fitted before. He's just machining some nylon blocks and stainless steel pins for the actual final mountings for the rear arch spats on that. And then that pretty much finishes where we are with Utah this week. And I think that covers pretty much everything that we've done. Just looking around in case I've forgotten anything, but I don't think so. So yeah, there you are, another week at Retropower.
Not your noggin.
That's a terrible noggin, man.